Welcome. In this video, it's probably going to be short and sweet, hoping not to have an intro at all here, so I'm just going to get right into my topic. This video is called When I Die, I Doesn't Die, the concept of the One, or I, ends, awakens. And so I just want to share a little paragraph I just put together. I'm sure it'll make a connection. I'm sure it will resonate with a few people, But the underlying principle is, since the self is established through the body becomes what the self is. The self which we know, which we birth out as, is established through the senses, through the body, so the body becomes what the self is. And that's why I say we can only become as self-aware as that self. It's when we learn that the body dies that we no longer wish to be the body, that we wish to transcend the self which was established through the body. See, there is no problem up until we realize the self is what the body is, and the body dies. And the self does not want to die. The self does not want to end. But this is why becoming more aware, more self-aware, opens new dimensions to yourself. It is you revealing you to yourself. I said this in my video the other day. There is nothing in the universe beyond yourself waiting to reveal itself to you. When you are ready, you will receive the messages from yourself. Signs from the universe is your other half. Inside to outside, yin to the yang, is your other half, which you do not acknowledge as self. And again, it is because the self was established through the body, not the universe, not the external creation. So you don't identify this as self. You don't identify the stars as self. The body becomes self. But again, once you are aware the body dies, that's when we wish to transcend that self which exists in the body. So by experiencing death before your physical death, before the body ends, does not kill you. And that's why I say when I die, I doesn't die. The concept you have of I, or of self, ends. In other words, awakens from the dream, just as when we awaken from dreams. What the self is for all of us is merely a concept, a maya, a part of the physical, the illusion. And that's why they say when you are alive, you're dreaming. Once you have died, you have awakened. Because living in maya keeps you in the self of the body, the container, the finite, the limited. It is the self which exists in the body that wants to become a part of God, wants to connect to a higher power, wants to seek its way out of death. But in doing so, it comes at a price. What you most fear is always in front of you, as does what you seek. It's always what you fear that is cloaked as something scary, but behind that is your answer. We all have a different concept of self, and that's why I've said in my previous videos, when you birth into the self, you instantaneously birth the opposing concept of self, which is other. So in you being this creates that. If you remove this, you remove that. If you remove that, you remove this. You are the light and dark, male and female principle which makes up the self of one. And that's just it. It is because of ourself splitting ourselves that we know of the self. Everything that is here is an entire paradox in itself. It contradicts everything. All is one and one is all, but one can never appear as one. It has to appear as two. It has to appear separate from itself. To know self, I have to know other. And so, being a dual brain, by being this dual brain, we instantaneously birth out every concept which appears separate, to forget the fact that we are all the singular self. For all of us to be non-dual, meaning not two sides of the brain, just one mind, means there is no longer an inside and outside. There is no longer a you and me. There is no longer a self and other. Therefore, there is nothing that can be known. All that we can know and explain is I am. And that's the fact that we are aware, because once you die, it is not you that dies. It is the concept created from the I, and all the I is awareness. When we die, our concept of self, which is established through the body, dies. And all you're left with is the awareness which allowed you to establish the identity through the senses, which allowed you to establish the self through the body, and therefore allowed the body to become the self. But in doing so, we forget the self is not merely the body. The self is the inside and outside, because the two are in relation to one. And that's just it. That's why I say all is one appearing as two, because we have to. By me having a container, by me containing my limitlessness, I am able to experience one place at a time. One event at a time. In order to know time, I have to know its opposite, which is chaos, no order. So in having time and having events on a linear scale, we can bring order to our chaos. We can bring in order to our infinite limitlessness, and allow for things to happen one at a time. So it should be understood, while time does not exist, we need it as a construct to bring order to our chaos. Our true chaos and limitlessness cannot be spoken, cannot be expressed. We can know it's never ending, and we can use certain words to describe it, but the truth of the matter is, it cannot be known. And if it is known consciously or any other way, it is not what it is. And that's why I say it's a paradox entirely, because while it is you, it is not you. That is why I say we are a dual being. While we have conscious action, we have subconscious action, and what this does is vital. The conscious action appears as self, while the subconscious action appears as other, something beyond or other than what you call self. So in having subconscious action, it allows you to forget and get lost in the fact that it is all you. You're all one. We are all the singular self. By you creating other and the subconscious action that happens in the universe, you don't have to be all of it at one time, because it wouldn't work. You wouldn't know yourself. You establish the self through the subconscious other, through the subconscious action. If you were aware that you flowed your blood and you digested your food and you phased the moon and you rotated the stars and the sun, and you had to do all these things at one time, Alan Watts has said something similar. Not only would it take you forever just to start a day, because you'd have to do all these functions and think about it and consciously be doing all these things at once, but you wouldn't have a self. You wouldn't know of self. All you would know is that you are, and there is nothing that can express that. So if you know what you are, it is not in fact what you are. And again, it's back to the paradox. And that's why I say it's through birthing out as what we are not. Only what we are not can be known. Through birthing out as what we are not, we birth the concept of what we feel we are. Because all of us are identifying as a different self. All of us are self-aware on different levels. All of us have a different concept of self, and therefore, since you birthed the self and the other, we all have a different concept of self and God, which is the self and other. And that is why I say, while we all share the same space, we are literally creating a different reality. We are all self-aware on different levels. So we can see the same scenery. We can both look outside and see the same trees, see the same cars, but we are not creating the same realities, for we are self-aware on different levels, and self-awareness is everything. You can only take in external information in relation to how self-aware you are internally. The two are one and the same. They work in relation to each other. You dissolve the inside, the body, you dissolve the outside, the external, the universe. Through being one, you birth the other. Remove the senses, you remove the universe. It is through the senses which you establish what the self is, which is the body. And that is why I say, that is why the body becomes what the self is. So we instantaneously fall for the trick and begin not acknowledging our other half. Inside, outside. Above, below. This is the entire purpose behind as above, so below. As within, so without. As the universe, so the soul. What that is telling you is that you have two identities, if you will. You are a dual brain in nature. As what you appear as, you will always be a dual being in the physical. And that's what we don't realize, is the physical and non-physical are one and the same. So many people think that our answers to the physical are in the non-physical. So if we dissect the non-physical, we will find what we're seeking in the physical, but we do not realize it is because of the physical there exists a non-physical, and it's because of the non-physical there exists physical, because the two drive each other, just as conscious action and subconscious action. It is because of conscious action, self, that we know other, subconscious action that is not us, and vice versa. So it is because of one we know the other and vice versa. But both are what we call self. Even though one is called self and the other is called other, both combined is what you are. And as I say, cannot be expressed beyond words. But again, it's back to the paradox. People will say you're contradicting yourself because you're saying all these words. Again, this universe is a paradox. Everything is. If you are not contradicting yourself, you don't get it yet. Not only is your entire existence a contradiction, but every principle in nature is a contradiction in itself. And this is why I love Alice in Wonderland, because it takes the madness and insanity and contradicting principles of existence in itself and turns it into a humorous joke, to where it embraces the insanity and madness instead of letting it drive you insane. It embraces it. It embraces what we are. And that's why Terence McKenna has said we have lost touch with our true chaotic nature. We have been trained now as a culture, we've been culturally trained to fear the chaos, to fear our true selves. And that's why I say by creating deities and religious idols, we only prolong ourselves. You can rely on these figures and these people in the windows to save you for so long, but eventually you run into yourself. You do have to face yourself, and you will have to see that if I don't face myself in the body, because the body is not what I am, then I will have to face myself outside the body. You always run into yourself, and that's why I say all of us are prolonging ourselves, and that's why one of the books I'm working on currently is called The Prolonging Inevitability of One. Really put that together. The prolonging inevitability of one, because you are inevitable. What you truly are, beyond any form, is inevitable. And when I say that, I mean you will always be the Ouroboros, the snake which bites its own tail, meaning you will always metaphorically catch yourself, realize yourself. This is how Enoch became Metatron. This is how man becomes immortal, by realizing and bridging that gap between the two. Bridging the gap between human and God, above and below, realizing that these two are one. They're only concepts of one awareness, and when you kill the concepts, when you experience death, you do not die, the concepts die, leaving behind awareness. What you began as and what you end as, pure awareness. But again, through that awareness, when you are just that awareness, although I'm calling it awareness, there is no self which exists here. So again, a total paradox. While you are aware, there is no self that exists there, because it's non-dual. In order to know self, you have to be dual. Self, other. By being one, you evoke the other. So when you become non-dual, all you are is awareness, but again, not aware of self. You just are. And that's why what you are in that moment cannot be expressed through senses. It is through the senses which you have established the self of who you are, through the form. But if you know the form is what dies, then that is why you wish to transcend the self existing in the senses, existing in the body, the self which was established through the form. So you don't fear death. The concept you exist in is terrified of death. The illusion you exist in is terrified to be peeled back, to be revealed. But I promise you, behind that fear is a marvelous laugh with yourself. Everyone who has realized this has shared the very same laugh with themselves. Everyone. Because it is one of the most marvelous and extraordinary realizations one can come to while still in the form, while still in the body. It is the most profound, unexplainable, and powerful knowledge I feel that exists in this universe. For you're asking what the universe is in itself. And that's why I love the movies where these people are existing in two personalities, two identities at the same time, and then at the end they realize they're one of the same person. Shutter Island, Fight Club, these type of movies where they're living in two identities, two characters, because that is literally what we're doing. But when you tell people this, when you come forth with this, when you tell people you've talked to God, they put you in a straitjacket with shackles. You're deemed crazy by culture, but all culture is an illusion to the very self. Again, we are here to forget we are all the singular self. So what culture does is it creates a group of us, because again, we're one appearing as many. So when you have many as a culture telling you this is how you're supposed to be, this is what is normal, this is what is, you're just fitting in, you're creating the mold. But again, you're doing what you're supposed to do. You're getting lost in the culture and the many, forgetting the one. But eventually a few people escape that mold and start asking questions, and this is where you realize and remember again yourself as the one. This is when you realize that any person you have ever read about, listened to, whether dead or alive, has been you in another incarnation. Just as you have not known a duration between the moment of falling into a sleep and awakening, is the same way you have not had any conscious duration between when you have died and when you have rebirthed or incarnated again. You instantaneously turn back on, and each incarnation feels just as this one does. The very same, brand new, for the first time. Just as mysterious. And again, we don't think that it's us incarnating. We don't believe in reincarnation because, again, we're not consciously aware of it. But again, that's why I say, in having conscious action, you have subconscious action. One appears as the self doing it, and the other appears as just that, something other than the self that is doing it. So, by being the conscious action, creates the subconscious action. And incarnating into a new form is that subconscious action, is that other, the appearance of other, where you think it's not you, not the self, which is doing it. So that's why I say, a total paradox. While it's you, it is not you. The true you, the formless you, is always one step ahead, if you will. And that's why they say you get there by realizing you're already there. And if there is a physical place to you or a destination, then you have lost touch with the purpose, the meaning. The purpose and the meaning is in the road, not in arriving any place, not in getting there, not in getting here. The purpose is actually the road, the path. And that's how we rush through our lives and just make it to a grave. Life passes us by, time flies by, and we realize, oh my God, I'm 80 years old. Because we're trying to make it to destinations here and there, here and there, here and there. We're not realizing the purpose is in the road. So you can rush and beep at people and be in a hurry and be rude and all this to everybody. But the purpose isn't in getting to where you want to be. It's actually right where you're at, on the road. And you get there by realizing you're always there. So all these people rushing from place to place, you're only rushing into an early grave. You're only rushing to prolong your own death, to await your own death. But I am going to end this video. I wanted to keep it about 30 minutes long. I do want to start putting out shorter videos, shorter content. That way it's a little... For the people who don't want to watch an hour-long video, I'm going to start putting out shorter content. So I'm going to wrap up this video. If you would like to subscribe or hear any other of my thoughts or videos or opinions or anything, you can check out my YouTube channel and subscribe, Red Pill Rabbit Hole. My Facebook page is Tyler Ugaldi, and my business page is Order of the Black Wheel Matrix. If anyone has any ideas, any subjects, anything you would like to share with me, you can inbox me, email me anytime. Thank you for everyone who has joined. Thank you to everyone who is helping me share my content out. Since I don't charge for anything, shares basically is like gold to me, is my currency, is my reward. So any shares I get is much appreciated, much valued. I appreciate it. I'm still blocked from sharing in groups until December 28th, I believe. So if the message resonates with you, thank you for sharing. Thank you for joining me here today. Have a conscious Sunday, and I will see you another time. Thank you.